Welcome to NFL Daily, where school is out for summer, but the NFL is not. We're here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. My name's Gregg Rosenthal. This is Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic and Patrick Claybon of NFL Network. A man,
we're counting down, Greg.
A face built for television,
Oh,
not
stop it.
podcasting.
Yeah, Greg's gassing me up unnecessarily while he's got my favorite fit on right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
I love that jacket, and it kills every time.
It's very
I'm not
old,
even
and I
a
almost got
fashion
rid of it because it's getting a little faded and whatnot. But yes, this is the reason why you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. The last time I asked for people to subscribe and leave reviews on iTunes and Spotify, the people did it. So thank you, people, for doing that.
Thank you, people.
I noticed it. And yes, I referred to schools out. My kids are out of school. Wasn't that like the best day of the year? There is nothing in adult life, I feel like, that can replace the feeling of being a child on the last day of school. That's at least how I went through it. I don't know if you were the same, Jourdan.
I grew up in Phoenix, so walking out of the school at any time felt like getting hit with a wall of the sun. So that's pretty much my core memory of all of those times. But yeah, then it was like swim team and taking my radio flyer wagon to the library and filling it up with books because it was too hot to go outside. So you got to sit in and read all the time.
I recently discovered a TikTok trend of people who were accelerated students. They were the gifted children.
Yeah.
Who grow up and realize that, it was unfair to place these expectations on them.
Mm-hmm.
I was not one of them. Some of us didn't have to wait to be adults to be told that they were failures because I was a bad student.
Stop.
And so, not being in school was great for me. And the only thing that comes close as an adult is finishing my taxes. Whenever I finish my taxes and tax season is done, that feels like the last day of school.
That is a good feeling.
We're still supposed to do those?
That is a good feeling. I'm with you.
I'm just kidding. Whoever's listening.
And look, I think you could be a great student and be pumped that the school year is ending. Certainly, my daughter would fall into that category. Great student, but I mean, she could not be more excited because the thing you kind of forget about kids is those kids work hard. Imagine us having to go to work at like 8 a.m, being told what to do and shuttled around for like 7 straight hours for what a lot of people is like intense concentration where they're putting on this whole other, like, I'm not going to say personality, but you got to focus, you got to behave, you got to do the whole thing. You got to, like, it's a lot. So then the relief of that is amazing. Yeah. We are not going to have that same relief at the end of this show, but we are going to feel like we accomplished something because we did the AFC Secret Weapons a week and a half ago, maybe more, and it's just been bothering me. It's like, we got to close that circle. We can't just leave that open-ended. The people need to know who are the NFC Secret Weapons. So we're going to put 2 minutes on the clock. We got Chris Babona here on the producer ones and twos for this episode. So big spot for Chris, and we will start in the NFC East with Patrick Claybon and the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys frequently the target of constant consternation, and that is the secret weapon.
Oh.
The chaos and the star itself, not just the glorious facility in Frisco, but the star on the helmet and all the attention it provides.
Interesting.
Constant contract dispute, discussion, on and on. A lot of it, as we note on this show, unnecessary and counterproductive. But I think it is the perfect spot for George Pickens. And it's something that I mentioned last week on the show about the camp success and his relationship on the field wise with Dak Prescott and the way that it looks right now. But this is the perfect situation where somebody being energetic, bombastic, impossible to take your eye off of, in Pittsburgh fundamentally looks different when your vision is diverted in so many different places as it is in Dallas, including by ownership itself, that I think it honestly makes a perfect landing spot for a very, very talented player.
You're saying they are built different.
Yes, I am.
They kind of are. It goes along with one of my pet theories from the previous decade when I always said the Cowboys are never good in the offseason where they're gassed up the whole offseason. They start reading their own clippings. They end up like believing like their own hype, and then they disappoint. It was this back and forth thing. Now, Mike McCarthy helped change that a little bit, but I do like the Cowboys a little bit more coming off a bad season.
I am not as young as I used to be, but sometimes I still come across terms that I need some explanation for. Fan cam is one of those things where, and I might still get this wrong, but whereas if you're at a concert or something and you put an isolated camera with your phone or whatever on like one person in the band and you basically just follow them around with your phone and create like reels and it's all over
Patrick
TikTok
is making a skeptical look. That's
things.
not
Is that
my
correct?
interpretation.
Is that right?
My interpretation of a fan cam, which would be probably like a couple of years old, and I don't know if things have changed, would be like an edit
Yes.
of a particular person.
It just would be like 30 seconds of Carlos Alcaraz doing cool things in life and on the tennis court, and that's sort of their fan.
I feel like we're all saying we're all in the ballpark.
There is one person in
we're
focus
all
in both
near
of
the but George Pickens needs one.
Okay.
And I love this for him because he is so perfect for this. He plays football like a WWE figure. I love how entertaining he is. He's electric, and regardless, like I just think he's perfect for this spotlight.
I absolutely agree, and he's going to make them even more box office than they already were with Dak Prescott coming back. I'm going to go with the New York Giants, and my secret weapon for them is going to be their offensive line. I thought it got overlooked last year that when Andrew Thomas was out there, and that's a big piece here, and he's got to get back healthy. He's working his way. He's starting to do more things on the field, and he's coming back from that injury. When he was on the field, they had the first capable New York Giants offensive line in about 6 years. They weren't amazing, but the difference between one of the worst in the league to average or slightly better than average is solid. And they have is a huge difference. And they have a lot of continuity with John Runyon, a third-year player, and John Michael Schmitz. That's maybe a question mark area at center. Jermaine Illuminor was solid enough at right tackle. And I just think with an okay enough offensive line, you can let what's a pretty good skill position group, not great at quarterback, but the running backs and the tight end and the wide receivers are pretty good. They can be supported by that offensive line.
Yeah, it has to be a cohesive unit, and everything works together, and it uplifts the entire roster. And so
yeah, I think it makes you even more eager to play the rookie quarterback, Jackson Dart. I think it makes you more eager if you're Brian Daboll, knowing that, okay, this is the time we have the healthy line. And also, by the way, they've been going against who I think will quietly, maybe not so quietly, be one of the best defensive lines in the NFL this upcoming season, regardless of whatever happens on offense. They'll have been practicing against them.
Have you seen the training camp?
Yes, they look amazing. I know. It's OTAs. I know. But like, oh my God, they look incredible in terms of just all of the different looping and stunts and games that they can play. And there's so many different skill sets. And that helps your offensive line get better. And it makes your quarterback better. As long as you don't kill his confidence, it makes your quarterback better.
Well, that's the issue, is Russell Wilson was not protected amazingly, I would say, in Pittsburgh, but it wasn't like league worst either. He tends to make offensive lines look worse, and he will be the week one starting quarterback. I don't think that's a hot take.
No, it's not. I just thought, man, if someone said that to me, my heart would break. If someone said that about me as like a description, my heart would break. You know, Jourdan, we think she makes offensive lines look
We just
worse.
hold on to the ball. Even at his best, I think he was a great player, but I just think he makes it harder on offensive lines than other quarterbacks.
The biggest weapon in his arsenal is the deep ball, and it's going to take a little bit longer, and half a step means a lot. So, you know, Russ, that's what happens.
Thank you for landing that plane and making my comment not sound as rude. Jourdan, you are up with the Eagles.
Well, gang, we all know what the real secret weapon of the Philadelphia Eagles is.
There she is.
Hey now.
Okay, in all seriousness, how do you come up with a secret weapon for a team whose weapons are all so plentiful and so obvious? So I've sort of gone with a theme here. Next guy's up, ... out of nowhere, ... Again, Tyler Steen is starting right now at right guard. He was a front runner last season before a combination of injuries and Mekhi Becton's emergence kind of took over. And so now this might finally be his time. Stoutland University rolls through yet another developmental player who might be a core player for them. Terrace Marshall reportedly has also been super impressive this spring. They do need like a 3 at 4-ish at receiver right now. They have obviously a stacked 1 and 2, but a 3 and a 4. And he popped at times in Carolina, especially for his explosive playability. But obviously, they were a mess when he was there, and at quarterback had all kinds of issues. So these are two players where I think we're going to be saying, once again, the main secret weapon of the Philadelphia Eagles is, how did they do it again?
Ooh. That's testing because they have struggled at that spot for what it's worth. They've brought in a lot of Terrace Marshall-like players, guys that were maybe drafted high on other teams. Jahan Dotson is one of them who has that number 3 spot. And they haven't usually panned out. You still have to be a good NFL player. Just sprinkling Howie sauce on you isn't going to work, but maybe it will. It definitely has on the offensive line.
He certainly has the traits too. I think he has the traits, and they have the infrastructure around that position group, and then also that offense in general to set a player who's kind of flashed the traits but never quite caught on in his previous stop for a lot of different reasons. A lot of them environmental as well. Has the traits to really step forward, and I do think too. It's Stoutland University, but it's also just the Eagles University in general of late.
And that would be it would be another feather in the cap for that era of the Panthers. If Terrace Marshall is able to be successful, where it's we all start looking back at Matt Rule and what once was hey, what was actually going on there? As we've got multiple quarterbacks signing huge extensions and guys being successful. It's
Jonathan Mingo would be a big test case if he could succeed in Dallas. You're not hearing a lot of Mingo pop. In fact, tough. I think your guy, George Pickens, is kind of replacing him. I like that. They have a lot of young players that need to step up. Steen is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Moro Ojimo is a guy who might be leading that group in snaps. Certainly Jordan Davis has been there, but he's going to be a guy that really matters. Nolan Smith has to kind of take what he did in the playoffs and make it translate. So it's a sneaky, young team for a team that just won the Super Bowl.
And it sounds like Jahad Campbell is going to be ready in August. So that's still late. Obviously, that's not totally ideal, but the fact that he has so much potential and is such a fit with Vic Fangio in this system, I think there's a lot of bright potential there.
Terrace Marshall also feels like a departure, at least in the AJ Devontae era, physically at that number 3 spot. It feels like something different.
Mm-hmm.
They do have that huge draft pick from a year ago, Johnny Wilson, who's a departure from almost any wide receiver in the history of the NFL. He's 6'9". Yeah. Aeneas Smith also, they say, it's looking okay in the offseason. All right, Washington, you're up.
The Washington Commanders' secret weapon, and again, when the change was so significant and there was the glaring Rookie of the Year Heisman Trophy winner, you have to go off the books. But then collectively examining the team and the coaching staff, the secret weapon of the Commanders is almost. Adam Peters and the 49ers had so much success almost. Dan Quinn had so much success almost in the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history, right? And then you go down Cliff Kingsbury, Brian Johnson as the assistant head coach and offensive coordinator, almost had that success in Philadelphia, had to lose his job. The team goes and wins the Super Bowl without him. And collectively, this group of individuals who almost had so much success come together, recognize the places where there were shortcomings and maybe things didn't necessarily line up, and they have the biggest franchise turnaround that we've seen ever, in my opinion. I haven't going back to the who is this guy Kurt Warner on the cover of Rams, this was a laughingstock, fundamentally top to bottom franchise, and this group of almosts came back and did something real that has made me a believer.
Yeah, let's freaking go. Someone put NFL Films music behind that. The whole time my jaw is hanging on to the floor because I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is a column. This is a column. This is a documentary narration. Cook, Patrick, cook. This is, I want to run through a wall.
I don't even want to talk anymore because I was just gonna
no, tell me,
be a jerk and make a joke or something.
Make a joke, Greg.
She's absolutely right. Would you say all this almost helped make them try harder last year?
Yes. Well, no, honestly, because I would.
Why
use
are you like this?
No, I really would use it as a point to support my agenda, right? Where it's these folks can't do this and can't do that. No, the circumstances are what actually change for a lot of people. And even if you don't necessarily have that success, as long as you get opportunity, you're in a position to have success. And I think this team proves it.
Oh,
I was just using his words.
I know.
But in a joking way, I don't believe that. I think you're onto something too, because when you're saying almost, they are all extremely successful and have been successful for a reason. It's not like the 49ers weren't successful. It's not like all the people you mentioned haven't reached a level of success and then coming together.
Yeah, like those Cliff teams, we talk about the fall off all the time, but what about all the starts?
Hey now. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. It was hard for me to come up with a secret weapon because I feel like nothing about this team is secret. They're on Front Street. They're one of America's teams, I think, that are just going to get covered in the year 2025. But you know who has been hiding in the weeds this offseason?
Who, Greg?
Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen.
For good reason.
No!
The very
That's the reason Dennis Allen is
embodiment of the Peter principle. You know who Dennis Allen is? A great assistant coach. One of the better coordinators in a long time. And you know what his specialty is more than anything?
alienating people.
Oh.
Now, that's the Peter principle thing. Not so good in the big chair. He's been very good as a coordinator. He consistently makes a difference with his guys in the secondary. I think he is ultimately a defensive backfield coach. And no matter what, even as a head coach with the Saints, he made that group work. And I think him inheriting this incredibly talented secondary is a little bit of a secret sauce. Not that Matt Eberflus wasn't great, but he's going to be able to bring out some new qualities. Tyreek Stevenson, I think, is a very up and down player who can be better. And you look at the rest of the group with Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, and then you have Byard and Brisker at safety. It's a nice group that I think Dennis Allen can maximize.
Yeah, it's a nice group. It's a group that's ready to, I guess, sustain sort of this high level of play that they have been playing at, even despite potentially at times chaotic and dysfunctional years and backslides and questions on offense. I really like when a really good coordinator gets another shot at being a really good coordinator post usually failed head coaching
Like Dennis
staff.
Allen with the Saints.
Yes, and we're going to get to Matt Eberflus again in Dallas. I think he's going to be great there. But it's interesting. I think that this was one of my favorite secondaries to watch at the beginning, especially the beginning of the season last year before Jaquan Brisker got hurt. And Kyler Gordon is one of the best players right now, one of the best young players in the league. And I just think that this has so much potential.
You know what I forgot? Jonathan Owens is on this team.
Yeah.
Mr. Simone Biles. He always pops up for like a fun handful of plays, just as like your 6th or 7th defensive back.
Yeah, he makes plays. And again, like I have fun at Dennis Allen's expense, but like that collectively, what has gone wrong in the Dennis Allen era of New Orleans couldn't have been done alone. Right? There were multiple hands.
Group failure. Woo!
There were multiple hands in that. And yeah, sometimes you take responsibility away from somebody. They can focus on the things they're actually good at.
He's the anti-Shoddy. Shoddy going to be better as a head coach than he was as a coordinator. Dennis Allen has proven he's better as a coordinator.
This is a hot take. Sorry about this, to put this in everyone's brains. But for some reason, he really reminds me of Edward Norton. Like, he looks like Ed Norton to me. I can't explain it.
Is there a particular Ed Norton character or Ed Norton himself?
Young Ed Norton before the soap. He kind of just the way, I don't know. It's like something about the face structure. I have no idea. I have no clue.
A little bit, but if I'm Ed Norton, I'm not thrilled with this comp. Detroit, you're up, Jourdan. I mean, this is one of our great actors here, and sticking him with Jen.
Put him in a
Dennis Allen.
visor. I just want to see something.
Okay.
Tate Ratledge is the secret weapon. Again, a team that has so many weapons that are so obvious. One of the most important things that they're going to have to be able to do is get this offensive line up to speed despite a couple of personnel losses. Tate Ratledge is really important for this reason. The Lions are going to decide between Tate Ratledge and Graham Glasgow as their future center, even beyond this year, because Frank Ragnar's retirement this spring. Glasgow might have an early edge because he's more experienced, and Jared Goff might still need some help at the line of scrimmage. Who wouldn't want someone taking the burden of pressure off of the quarterback's plate and letting that quarterback just sling it around? But Ratledge was an awesome pickup who will immediately compete at the guard spot and potentially could win the long-term starting job at center if the developmental process continues to stay how it has been in Detroit. And he's smart. He's a multi-year starter from Georgia. He can be mean as hell, according to scouting reports, but also his teammates love him and love rallying around him. Who does that sound like to you? The recently retired Frank Ragnow.
I do worry for his sake in terms of the competition at the position.
Mm-hmm.
If all of the attrition in Detroit leads them to try to go with something familiar and try to have less change in a guy that Jared has at least played with a little bit versus like you look around the coaching staff and now the roster and you start to see that those number of departures kind of add up.
Also, he's a rookie and a guy who people are not expecting to go in the second round. I always do suffer a little bit of whiplash this time of year with guys who holes were poked in Ratledge. Like, there were very differing opinions about his quality as a prospect. A lot of people thought he is a day 3 type of guy. They obviously felt different, and I trust their opinion. But taking him before people expect late in round 2 and pushing him into this spot, that's not easy.
I will say I trust the Lions' evaluation process about their offensive linemen. I trust their coaching process with their offensive linemen. And I'm not saying he's going to start at center immediately because, like Patrick said, I think there would probably be some nerves. You want someone who's been in the offense a little bit to actually be doing that in the short term at least. But I think this kid's going to compete, really. I really do. And I think that Brad Holmes knows that and identifies those traits in him. The other secret weapon that has to be a secret weapon, but we'll see if it is if Dan Campbell can keep that knack for identifying coordinators, because he did really well the last time he had to replace coordinators, and those guys are both gone now in head coaching jobs.
Yeah, and if Ratledge, by the way, doesn't win the center job, he's probably starting at right guard. So either way, he's going to be in a big spot for a great offensive line. Patrick, you got the Packers.
Well, the Green Bay Packers did something that they have not done in forever and drafted a wide receiver in the first round, but the secret weapon is Tucker Kraft. It's a player that we've seen multiple years and a guy that had a lot of action in specifically designed plays for the tight end where you scheme him up and not as much work out there in the route. Well, that pec injury that he had last year in the offseason kind of limited his ability to be ingratiated into the offense. And even then, there were 7 touchdowns for Tucker Kraft. I think we see an explosion for Tucker Kraft, an opportunity. The guy who had 70 targets last year, where all the attention gets devoted outside, and even more so now, where I believe there's more of an opportunity, and Tucker Kraft becomes the secret weapon for the Green Bay Packers in 2025.
Shout out to NFL Films' Greg Cosell, who I remember coming out, thought Kraft was, if not the best tight end, like the second best tight end in this class, thought he was a better prospect than Musgrave, who goes earlier to the same Green Bay Packers team. And I feel like his breakout got a little slept on nationally. Like, to put up 700 yards as a second-year tight end, and then you don't need to be a scout to just see him with the ball is kind of magical. Like, he is going to have a great career. And Musgrave could be healthier this year, too, and kind of give them a nice 1B where that's a lot to deal with for defense.
There have been few players, because you expect when you cover this sport in this league, you expect everyone or most people to be like massive humans, right? And extremely athletic. There are very few people that have rendered me sort of speechless in like, oh, you are much larger than expected. Julius Peppers was one of those people when I got to meet him for the first time and totally was like stunned by just how you could move like that at that size. And watching Tucker Kraft warm up last season pregame, he is not a tight end. Like, you know that position is massive already, stereotypically, but like, he is not that. He's something else. He's different. Like, it is scary to see how well he can move with the ball at his frame, and sometimes hard to pick up, I think, on the broadcast. But in person, you're like, no, you're not actually supposed to be able to do that at your size.
Also named after your dog.
Yes.
Tucker.
He was the 22-year-old Tucker Kraft is named after my 12-year-old dog.
Okay, maybe not.
Yes.
You're right about body type. I do feel like an impressive-looking tight end in person is maybe more impressive than any position. I always put up Kyle Brady, former Jet and Patriot, as the most impressive NFL person I've ever seen.
Mine were both from covering college football. Obviously, the first time I saw Cam Newton, I thought he was a different
Another
human.
one that got me, stunning.
Standing on somebody else's legs behind him, but it was actually one person standing on a pair of legs. And Kelvin Benjamin, I know people will make weight jokes, but it was before the bowl game against Florida State. There was media availability, and I saw Kelvin Benjamin. It felt like I've interviewed Shaq multiple times. Kelvin Benjamin is gigantic.
Interesting.
Just a colossal
That's
person.
a clip. That's going to be clipped out. Kelvin Benjamin.
Myles Garrett is another one. It's an
Eric
obvious
Henry,
one, but
stunning. Yeah.
This should be on our naming guys.
Naming
podcast.
some guys. You'd be great with that.
Remembering
Patrick.
some guys.
Remembering some dudes. That's
naming impressive looking guys in person, but it's not weird. Let's go to the Vikings, and mine is sort of ephemeral, but I believe in it. I think the timing of this Vikings team, of where they are in their team build and where their players are, is going to be their secret weapon. I think of Kevin O'Connell, who's 34-17, like in 3 years. Year 4 of him and Kwesi coming together. And then you look at the combination of continuity, youth, and experience. And I just think it's tough. Sometimes you don't realize your window is there before it's gone. And they are at a really interesting window where obviously JJ's at his peak and should stay there. But Jourdan Addison is still there and has developed. They're young players in terms of their offensive line. Like Donovan Jackson, are being helped out by the veterans. Darisaw, who should be in his peak, and you still have Brian O'Neill, and you bring in their free agents. You can support this young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy with a lot of players, obviously, on the defensive side. You don't know how long Brian Flores is going to be there. You don't know how long Harrison Smith is going to be there. Like Cashman and Grenard, these guys who got there, they now know the system. Van Ginkel, like they have been there. I just think if you look at the roster overall, it's not too young, it's not too old, and it's not too stale. It's just right. Minnesota Vikings.
They're the Goldilocks team.
I really believe that. Like it's a perfect combination.
It suits JJ McCarthy's hair as well.
Yeah, Goldie lettuce.
That's part of it. Like in theory, you would want your quarterback, I guess, to have more experience. But I think if
1 minute.
he's even in a better situation than he would have been as a rookie because he's been there and he's learned how an NFL season
well, the
works.
floor for this entire team is so much higher because of the way that the roster is constructed. To your point, Greg, like even if he struggles, there's enough help everywhere else to sort of paper over that long enough for Kevin O'Connell to get in and do the thing that we know that he does and has done consistently since he became head coach and even before that when he was a coordinator. And that is reset, recalibrate the quarterback, get the quarterback on the right track. And I just think that when you look at this entire roster on paper, you think this is a make or break year. But I don't think that's true because you look at the ages and you look at the contracts, and I don't think this is a make or break year for them or like a boom or bust situation based on the severe veteranness of some of the players. Because on the other side of it, they've got the quarterback on the rookie deal. And so they can keep loading up. They can keep stocking up like this and continue to be like a hybrid young old team.
And there's a lot of guys where we haven't fully seen the vision come true yet for them. So that's just house money. There's the Vikings that we know that we can trust and count on that they will execute to a high level. And then you've got like your Dallases right off the edge. You've got JJ McCarthy. And you juxtapose that with Justin Jefferson, like at the top of the game in the top of his career right now, where it's like we know what we're gonna get, and anything we get from these guys is just money.
I don't think it's make or break in any way, but I've just had the experience of like doing those articles, like best rosters in the league every offseason, and they just don't stay together long. Like there was this, I thought the Falcons roster was going to be set for a while. I thought that Eagles roster with Carson Wentz was going to be set for a while. And you realize, like, in terms of a complete roster, all the position groups, it really only lasts usually like 1 or 2 seasons with the coach. And I think this is that season.
But that's fine because they will have to reload. There are going to be players who age out of this roster, quite frankly, and overly bluntly, but there will be. And so they can still reload. And that's the entire point is like they're in this very cool hybrid now and then type of build.
But now is a time where Brian Flores there, go win a Super Bowl like now. I think they are in contention to represent the NFC and get there. Let's take a quick break. We will be back with the NFC South. Back at NFL Daily, it's everyone's favorite division. It's the NFC South.
Woo!
It's Jourdan Rodrigue with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes, my secret weapon for the Falcons is that most of you, not you guys, but most of you are still sleeping on Mike Penix. And yes, I mentioned this on a previous show. I have heard the hand-wringing about the dynamics in the quarterback's room and what's it going to be like to have Kirk Cousins looking over Mike Penix's shoulder the entire time. And I got to tell you, I don't give one fig about any of that. I think that this is an ultra-confident young man who throws the hell out of the football, who this entire coaching staff on the offensive side, on the defensive side, and specifically with the plan for this offense moving forward, they are running the entire ship through what he can do and how he can unfold the layers of this passing game and run the offense and in a very multiple way. I think that this is one of their advantages is that if the general population is sleeping a little bit on Mike Penix and has a very limited sample size, I also think other teams are going to be sleeping on Mike Penix and certainly have a relatively limited sample size. I bet he will go through struggles just like any young quarterback will, but the composure and the confidence and the amount of football that this young man has already seen, I just think it's all uphill overall long term for him, and I think he's going to have a great career.
And sneaky, not as young as most second-year quarterbacks, will be 26 this year, which I think is an advantage for him. He's seen more football. He's more mature. He is one of the biggest X factors of this entire NFL season. Reminds me a lot of Jordan Love going into his first full season. Just that the talent's all there. I think the streakiness might be there. The upside is there. I don't know how it's going to go.
We haven't seen the downside of the streakiness to the extent that Jordan Love showed it. Again, Jordan Love, a much younger player at the time.
Maybe his college career before his last season, I guess you would say.
But if you put together a season like that at Washington and then carry it through into what he showed at the NFL level, that's not 2 full seasons, but that is 2 seasons where you're not seeing that streakiness.
Yeah, and if we go back in hindsight and look at the outcomes for DeBoer, we look at the outcomes for his receivers. Although McMillan had a nice push late in the season, apparently Michael Penix Jr. was carrying that entire operation.
That dude.
It's true. He makes me very excited to watch Atlanta Falcons football games. Now I have gotten too enamored with quarterbacks off a 3 to 4 game sample size at the end of their rookie year before.
No.
So I just want to see it. Just want to see it again. I've been burned. Patrick, you got the Panthers.
I am looking at the Carolina Panthers, where obviously there's guys like Jalen Coker who would be seen as a secret weapon, but there's so much discussion about Jalen Coker being the secret weapon that he can't be the secret weapon. So I'm going to go back a couple drafts. I'm going to go to a player who was underperforming in Ike Ekwonu, who had a great bounce back season. And now the Panthers are going to be in position to sign Ekwonu on a deal where, based on his recent success, is going to be a great value for them. Probably not for Ike Ekwonu, which is rough for him. But it puts them in a position to get that position locked up in a place where a lot of teams aren't able to do that. And we saw the way that tackles were flying off boards and teams were taking chances on guys. They can get a guy who's a proven player who's shown growth within this coaching staff and have him for a while and figure out the rest of the roster. Obviously, the defensive side of the ball needs a lot of work, but a lot of reasons to feel great about the offense.
It'll be interesting if they try to sign him before this season.
I think they should.
Because he has that 5th-year option. And you're right, they could be locked down. They obviously still feel good about their right tackle, Taylor Moton, one of the more underrated tackles in the league for the last handful of years. So that's a great way to start an offense, and their offensive line is so much improved from a few years ago.
Yeah, overall, I think their offensive line is a bit of a secret weapon for them as well. Last year, they looked outstanding, and they have continuity coming into this other season. This next season, Austin Corbett is going to be healthy. He's dealt with some really bad injuries over the past couple of years. Taylor Moton, one of my favorite people and players all time to ever cover, is still kicking and still doing the dang thing at such a high and consistent level. One of the most slept on tackles in the league, I feel. But yeah, I like this offensive line. I like it for Bryce Young, who is always going to need that extra protection just because of his size and his physical frame. This is going to be exciting, I think, just in that perspective. And they need Icky to step forward because it was so bad the first couple of years, and they were trying to make it work. And now it finally looks like he's gaining confidence, similar to the quarterback.
And I did hear the camp story of Bryce as well as J.C. Horn verbally beefing and sparring.
Honking.
I would like them to escalate that to Cam and Josh Norman.
Oh my God, that's when you know.
To recreate the picture,
season.
And then they could put both pictures up in the facility.
That's when they're going to go. They'll go 15-1 that year, or 15-2.
Josh Norman was bold. I mean, that would not be a fight I feel like he would win.
And the picture, the lasting photo of that is so epic. It's Cam smiling as they're fighting. And he's so confident in the fact he's like, I've got like 100 pounds on you. It's just amazing.
I also like that offensive line made Chuba Hubbard like a star.
Yeah.
And they could do it for Rico Dowdle. They could do it for Trevor Etienne. Who knows?
Just stop somebody. Try to sneak 13 guys out there.
So let's do the Saints. I told you that for the Bears, Dennis Allen could be their secret weapon. And what if I told you that the Saints' secret weapon is Dennis Allen not being there? So, like, he is a secret weapon for both. Just the improved vibes and the feeling of something new is enough to make some veterans who maybe weren't loving football as much last year as they used to re-engage with the sport on an exciting level. So just removing that vibeless atmosphere and improving it with Kellen Moore. him not being there is their secret weapon, just a removal.
If I were going to have this section, I would say the Saints' secret weapon is someday and somehow trying to live up to the floor of Gregg's standard for this team. And the weight of disappointment when they let you down every single
year. Well, not
year.
me. How about the true Saints fans? I mean, this was one of the most consistently successful team for 14 years, and they just let it kind of rot.
I'm not even sure you are aware of how your voice changes when you talk about them. I think that's their secret weapon.
I am probably harder on them.
It's changing that.
I feel bad because the last time you uplifted Dennis Allen and made me feel bad for my collective years worth of Dennis Allen jokes.
Yeah.
And so I felt a need to step in, and it was all to set up this.
You didn't know it was a two-part joke. Yeah.
A few days later, a little nugget for the people paying attention.
Play.
I do believe in it. I do believe in it. I do believe that defense. I don't know if Brandon Staley is going to build up his name again, but I do think there's enough good players on this defense, including in the secondary, to be much better than they were a year ago.
Another failed head coach who I think it will be a dang good coordinator and was a dang good coordinator despite the fact that he had all the stars in the world, still had to install a brand new defense through COVID. I think he will re-find himself in New Orleans in that role.
As long as, because there's still some continuity in the building, obviously. The people that were there for all segments, success and failure, as long as there's an honest accounting of what went wrong and who was responsible for it and why.
But
would you say they're still a looming?
I agree, but that's the off season, and I had some issues with their off season. But ultimately, you look at this team, and almost every team can do that. But if you squint hard enough and make a best case scenario of a lot of these different position groups, they should be a lot more fun to watch this year. Let's wrap up the NFC South with your Buccaneers.
My Buccaneers! Yay! Emeka Egbuka. I said before the draft, he was one of my favorite receivers because of his versatility and his pro readiness, and he kind of reminded me on both of those phases of Chris Godwin when he was coming out and emerging in the league. That's one reason why I loved this match with the Bucs, and now Baker Mayfield is up here at the lectern talking about Emeka Egbuka, the rookie receiver who the Bucs obviously drafted this year, and his versatility, and that they can plug him in anywhere, and that he already has this trust developing with him. And when Baker says it, I actually don't believe that that's an off-season trope. When you think about Baker's personality, you think about Emeka Egbuka's personality and just his overall traits and his readiness. And I love this, and I think this is a secret weapon for them because he will have to be ready to go. I think having him ready to go will be a major reason why this offense does not lose a step out of the gate despite onboarding a new OC in King Grizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And the fact that Chris Godwin will still need a little bit more time to get back from last year's injury. It's a win-win-win for everybody that Emeka Egbuka is ready and he's a secret weapon.
Kind of looking at the offense in general, he's a great example of, I think, a secret weapon for them, which is just great depth at the skill positions, that they don't have two great receivers. They have 4 to 5 really promising ones. Jalen McMillan was a really good third receiver.
Let's not forget about him.
I think they feel really good about their running back position. They've been saying they think Sean Tucker is a starting level running back.
Dennis Allen certainly does.
Right. That's why they were maybe willing
the hits keep coming
to let go of Rachaad White in the offseason. But Rachaad White's still there and Bucky Irving's still there. So they're very deep at a lot of positions.
Yeah, and it's an offense where, and it does put a lot on Emeka Egbuka to be the secret weapon, considering like Chris Godwin brings so much to the table, especially after the catch, and hopefully he comes back and is able to get healthy. But there's no reason to doubt like this particular group of players, and Mike Evans is still doing it, where you feel great about the offense, and it makes you realize how fun this division is going to be, despite its detractors who may carry a podcast.
I mean, Sterling Shepard was out there making big-time plays. I'm not a detractor in the playoffs. They are deep. I'm not a detractor.
Baker believers over here.
I did see him on Chris Sims's quarterback rankings in a special tier of like guys with big hoses or something, and it was him and Herbert.
I'm sorry, what?
8 and 9. That's a word we used to use.
But it's not weird, though.
For arm strength, and it's not weird at all. Arizona Cardinals, Patrick, you're up. You can't even get Babona to smile with that. And then he forces it.
Oh, it's a Jourdan shrug back there. I do think because the Arizona Cardinals, right, stylistically, we've talked about the embodiment of the search bar, and I had to find a player for the secret weapon that I was talking about, because I recognize that they've had free agents and drafts at the position, but Zaven Collins, a player who was kind of one of those Kime Bomb head scratchers a year after a Kime Bomb head scratcher where they had Isaiah Simmons that didn't really know what to do with him. So they draft the biggest middle linebacker they can possibly find out of Tulsa and play him kind of out of position. And Jonathan Gannon has come back in. He played at edge and was great against the run. Obviously, you don't want a 270-pound dude out there trying to cover people. And so, like, that's a place where he's going to struggle. But there's so many pieces on this franchise that were misutilized and underutilized. And now in year 3 of this new regime, combined with the rookie class, can be put in better positions, along with the free agents, to give us something to believe in the desert.
There's no question that the Cardinals on offense and on defense have to take a step forward and sustain through an entire season versus one side or the other. In this case, last season, it was the offense sort of petering out after the midway point. I think that this team is a really good example of when good coaching in almost every level, especially right now on defense, because that was where they were so depleted, meets good drafting and talent identification. It's not, to your point, Patrick, it's not just about finding traits and throwing them on the field, which was so often what the Cardinals used to do under previous regimes, but they're actually being developed. There are players on both sides of the ball that this coaching staff is developing. I think that it is a real, very like substance forward way to team build where they're at right now, but none of it matters really unless they all collectively take this next step forward.
And if they pick the right guys to come in and help them, because so many of their starters on defense were not on the team a year ago. Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Josh Sweat, maybe Will Johnson, the rookie, but man, they have a lot of talent. I am going to, I don't know if overrate's the right word, but kind of wish fulfillment. Pick them to do very well this season because I want to see it happen. I just want to see a little bit of a shakeup. They have so many interesting players and coaches. Like, be a real contender. Make the playoffs, win the division, stuff like that. It could happen.
That's a precipitous fall for somebody in the West. It just the West is fun. I love the West.
I'll live with it.
I know people are like, you guys talk the West too much. No, we don't.
No. Let's talk about the West.
Let's do it.
We got the Rams. A team... I think like the Bears, to me, it was harder to come up with the secret weapon because we obviously put them on Front Street with adding Devontae Adams and talking about all the different ways that this is like a go-time year. And then I looked back in the secondary and I thought about the Cams. And I'm talking about Cam Curl and Cam Kitchen. So Curl was a really good player for Washington and came over to the Rams and I think translated his skill set well. And Cam Kitchens was a 3rd-round pick for the Rams a year ago that played pretty well in his rookie season at free safety. And I thought they were a good example of a secret weapon in general for the Rams, which much like the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they've done a good job not using that many resources in the secondary and getting good enough to good play in the secondary. I would say the Chiefs have done it at a higher level, but the Rams have kind of been like the poor man's having that sauce where it's not huge money going to these players and they've coached them up and they've gotten by it without spending huge resources in a spot where a lot of teams are.
And Cam spelled backwards is Mac.
Okay.
So let me remind you of Jalen McCullough, who is the undrafted free agent safety who led the team in interceptions last season at the start of the year and through most of the season. Cam Kitchens, 3rd-round pick out of Miami.
Oh, I always just say Kitchens. My bad.
Then ended up matching his pace.
1 minute.
The secondary is thin at corner. They really are liking what they're seeing from Emmanuel Forbes right now in sort of this like reboosting his confidence project that they've taken on. And you've seen this in the past. I actually had him comp to like a Leonard Floyd, obviously very different players, positions, all this stuff, but the complete loss of confidence, a complete failure at the place that drafted him high, and then regaining that confidence with good coaching, a good scheme over in LA. The coaching staff is sort of seeing proof of concept with that, with Aubrey Pleasant really taking Emmanuel Forbes under his wing. They are still thin on the outsides. And I think that their safeties are one of the strong points of this team. And to your point, Greg, they don't invest a lot of resources in that group.
I think, especially with Forbes, a lot of people got to realize that there's not many people on the planet that are going to look great as a rookie against A.J. Brown, right? Like, I understand people talk about body types and all these other things. And you mentioned Mac, and it made me realize, what does a gearhead say when the Rams are in cover 2? that it's dual overhead cam.
Jesus.
Hey now. Jourdan sold it for you. I mean, she sounded like you said something terrible at that. I thought it was clever, personally.
It was clever. I just, it just it was a journey for me.
But thank you for pointing out the N in Cam Kitchen's name.
Literally
because
never knew
to
that.
this day.
Yeah.
I thought it was Kitchens.
No idea.
I've been saying.
I had no idea. And I apologize to that man.
Sorry, Cam.
Seattle.
Well, I think it's fair. He does cook.
There you
There it
go.
is.
You got the Seahawks, Jourdan.
Yes, I have the Seahawks. I think their secret weapon, and again, it's really kind of hard to figure out. It's not really a secret, but the second year of this defense under Mike McDonald and defensive coordinator Auden Durde, adjusting some personnel up front and at inside linebacker really last season really helped with one of their biggest issues, and that was their run defense early on. Once that came along, they finished 11th in points allowed, 8th in defensive EPA, and in the back third of the season, they were truly a formidable group, and I love what this secondary can do. They've got Spoon, Reek Woolen, Julian Love, and Kobe Bryant as the safety pairing, and then now they're adding Nick Emenwari, and I think that Nick Emenwari in tandem with Ernest Jones, who isn't necessarily going to be your side-to-side cover linebacker all the time, but is so great blitzing and is so great against the run, that allows a Nick Emenwari to kind of move up and back to and fro the line of scrimmage, being that second hybrid linebacker who can help against the run, but also can cover the middle of the field. This defense is so much fun front to back, and I really think that's going to be their secret/not-so-secret weapon this year.
Yeah, I think the history of Mike McDonald informs us so much. We shouldn't just expect a total copy of what happened in Baltimore. But in Baltimore, there was some early struggles. They finished out that first year strong. The roster looked good going into the second year, and they were lights out. Maybe the best in the league. Certainly one of them, his second year there. The way they finished last year makes you believe that he could do that again. Because, Patrick, I think personnel, the floor should be top 10. Personnel, I do think him and the coach, they could be top 5, top 3. Like the players are there and the coach is there.
And normally they were willing to make those changes within that first season.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that. And so many times people and teams and franchises wait to the offseason to do that. But I think this staff is very introspective in its ability to self-evaluate.
Mm-hmm.
And so they saw where things were working, like if the coaching staff on the roster, position group by position group, and made those changes where they went ahead and did that. And now they can focus on the next thing, which is a reason to believe.
Yeah, shout out to Rod Dodson, who's a good player. They got rid of him in the middle of the season. And obviously that worked out great with Ernest Jones coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Signed an extension this offseason. The whispers at a mini camp, they are saying they might blitz Spoon a little bit more, which I think is great. He was incredibly impactful when he did get those opportunities. And they have enough defensive backs now to keep these rotations going and keep the continuity there while still moving people in at the quarterback and taking them away from the defensive backfield.
Am I remembering wrong, or did he essentially end Tommy DeVito mania by doing such a thing? Devin Witherspoon just blitzing his face off, or was that Daniel Jones?
Might have been Tommy DeVito.
That's what
They did a Tommy DeVito mania.
Yeah.
One of the
Tommy
failed
Cutlets.
experiments in New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was Devin Witherspoon. That
Our favorite meme.
That Monday night game, for some reason, by Witherspoon just sticks in my head. All right, 49ers, wrap it up.
The secret weapon for the San Francisco 49ers is a new shortened approach by Jake Moody, who was coming back.
This is secret.
This is great.
He was coming off of an ankle injury last year that was also maybe came back a little bit too early. Is 72% on his field goal percentage for a team that lost by an average of 3.4 points. And so ultimately, we know the margins are very slim, especially for that 49ers team last year dealing with the injuries, and they've got all the departures. But if Jake Moody can make 85% of his kicks, the circumstances look a little bit different in this West that's a jumble where we think everybody can do better than maybe they're ultimately going to.
Well, what if I told
Fury
you?
Road.
Yeah, I love that, but he's got to go win that job because it's a little under the radar. They brought in Greg Joseph recently, who's had his moments in the NFL, I guess, and we got a full-blown kicking competition at 49ers camp. Get ready.
Woohoo! Secret weapon!
The unique thing about kicking competitions is they don't just end in training camp. If somebody misses a few kicks during the season, the kicking competitions last forever.
Maybe that's a secret weapon for the 49ers. Isn't training camp just more fun to cover if there's a kicking competition?
Those are stats you should be tracking. Those are stats you should be charting throughout the course of training camp. One time I was covering Graham Gano, who was always very honest and like very relatable at talking with media. And he was in a kicking competition, and at the time actually with Harrison Butker, who they then cut. And he had a kick that went wildly to the right of the goalpost, and I happened
So did Harrison Butker.
And I happened to make a mention of that in my practice report. And he marched up to me on the sideline and said, "That wasn't a shank," and then showed me what it actually looks like to shank. And I appreciated the teaching moment.
Put you on. Shout out to Graham Gano.
Yeah, Graham Gano.
Shout out to the group of individuals I was walking behind on Canal Street last February in New Orleans, all wearing Butker jerseys. Don't know if that was his family or just big fans, but either way, it was like seven Butker t-shirts and jerseys.
I think that the different approach to his kick that Jake Moody is taking really brings home a truth that some of us have to learn at times, that it's not the size of your leg, but the way that you use it.
Yeah.
Thank you for ignoring my take.
And also, technique is important.
Yeah.
I think people look at a kicker or miss, and they're like, this guy's in his head. You know, I'm an expert. I've watched 6 episodes of Dr. Phil, so I know what human brains do. And this guy, his brain is bad right now.
I'd like him to become a great kicker because I have a great nickname for if he has a fan base, the mood swings.
Oh, like that.
Leg swing, mood swing.
I like that. I can imagine that if he was a Buccaneer, just being in the corner as one of those little fan groups that they do. It's like 15 different fan groups. Look, 49ers fans, you also have a healthy Nick Bosa and Christian McCaffrey on the field, which it's the off season, but that always feels good. That is a little dose of optimism for you on this Monday. Wow.
I slept here.
It's going to be a big week. I can't wait for this next episode. I am going to be listening to it immediately. It is the first NFL Daily, which I will not take part. Patrick Claybon hosting.
You guys hear that? Greg has single-handedly been carrying this shit.
No, that's not true.
It's true.
But really looking forward to that. So it's going to be Patrick in the studio. Next time will be on Wednesday. Football's back.